My name is Danielle Harford-Fox, and I'm one of the deputies here at Solihull. And today I'm going to talk about the Novus Curriculum, which is a project we've been working on for the last few years. I'm going to talk about where it came from, what we're trying to achieve, and what it's going to mean for your son or daughter. So the project really started with us thinking about the purpose of education and what skills our pupils were learning. If we think about it, education in the UK has been the same for over 100 years. It's a knowledge-based system. Teachers are the holders of that knowledge. We separate knowledge into different silos we call subjects, and we pass that knowledge down to children. And then we separate children and rank them on their ability to use and reproduce that knowledge in examination conditions. And that changed again maybe 20 or so years ago with the advent of league tables, which put an increased pressure and focus on examination results. And that means that teachers are focused on results, head teachers are focused on the results, on the bottom line of the percentage of A stars to Bs, etc. And so heads of departments are focused on that, and so the classroom teacher is. So when I was at school and I studied, like, I don't know, maths and English and physics, I don't really remember my teachers talking about exam technique until maybe we were a couple of months away from the exams. But now really from the first day of a GCSE or A-level course, you'll find that teachers are talking about AO1 and AO2 and AO3 and how you structure a short answer question for AQA and how you structure a 4-mark question. And so the focus on examination skills has really become increasingly profound. And that already, I think, starts to raise some problems in terms of the types of skills that pupils have. Because the skills that make us successful in exams are useful skills, but they're skills such as memorization, regurgitation, the ability to work really quickly in timed conditions, the ability to handwrite quite fast, the ability to work alone. And already organisations are concerned that those aren't the skills that are needed in the world today. And the CBI, which represents British industry, publishes a report every year and has for the last 7 or 8 years called on the government for a radical review of education because they're concerned about the skills they see in young people. And as they say, in schools as in business, what gets measured is what gets done. So we already have some concerns about the kinds of skills our pupils have. But then the second thing we had is, okay, well, what is the future going to bring? What challenges are our young people today going to face in the 21st century? And when we first started looking at this, the phrase fourth industrial revolution was actually quite unusual, but now it's on the front page of the World Economic Forum. It's even recognised by the British government. And we did a lot of research, we spoke to a lot of people, we read a lot of academic papers. And it's very difficult to predict the future, but you can get a variety of themes from the way that our society will be constructed and globalization. So, for example, today we probably are likely to work in teams on a project with people that live in the same town as us, and I imagine this will be accelerated by lockdown, but I think our sons and daughters may work in teams where somebody's in Shanghai and someone's in Texas. And so that ability to work globally is obviously one of the things that I think they're going to encounter. But the other area is about the impact on certain areas of employment. AI is very good at aggregating large amounts of information and predicting outcomes. And when you look at the research, there are 2 sort of major areas of industry that it suggests will be impacted. The first is kind of anything that can be automated. So you can already see this in things like Uber, where an algorithm in California sort of replaces, 30,000 global taxi companies in a year. Tesla will replace the taxi drivers with self-driving cars very soon. Amazon is running shops where there are no people working in them. But the second area of industry, and I think this is particularly relevant for our pupils, are knowledge-based industries. And these are areas where traditionally have been a good area of pursuit for young people. They go to a school to do a knowledge-based system, they go to university and get a knowledge-based degree, and then they're able to work in a good, secure job in a knowledge-based industry. But AI is very good at accumulating knowledge and predicting things, as we said. So, for example, AI is already better than humans at identifying cancer from certain types of lung cancer from X-rays. And that's because it can aggregate sort of 10,000 previous X-rays and spot patterns far more accurately than the human eye. And so that is going to have a very significant impact on the types of jobs our pupils have traditionally done. And I think this is well summarised by the Deloitte report on this area. Computers do not get tired. They make consistent decisions before and after lunchtime. They can process decades worth of legal cases, medical journal articles, or accounting regulations with minimal effort, and they can evaluate 500 predictive factors far more accurately than unaided human judgment can evaluate 5. But it's not all bleak. There are lots of areas that computers and technology will not impact. So, for example, AI and algorithms aren't particularly good at creativity, at ingenuity, at problem solving, at cross-domain thinking, where you pull information from different areas, at leadership and communication, at teamwork, at empathy and caring and nurturing other people, at inspiring people. But when we look back at the skills that are being built by our exam-focused culture, really they're the skills that make us more like computers, rather than the skills that pupils are going to actually need. And so that started us thinking, okay, well, what can we do then to make sure that we prepare our students as best we can for the future? And so again, we did a variety of research and we looked at different traits or skills they might need. And we thought about our community and what our pupils should be equipped with. And we identified 4 key traits. The first is the ability to be flexible. And by that, we mean both intellectually and emotionally. It's the ability to, rather than being rigid and scared of change, to actually embrace change and enjoy that fluidity. It's also the ability to see connections between different areas and make flexible links and problem solve and have synoptic thinking. The second area is being front-footed, and we stole this phrase from improv comedy, and it means literally being on the front foot, ready to jump into challenges. We've seen a lot of problems recently, but what we want is, rather than people being scared of jumping into things, being frightened of failure, we want them to actually embrace it, to embrace joyful failure, try things, learn, get up and try again. What we do know is that the future is going to be very fast changing, and we want our young people to therefore have the flexibility and front-footedness to kind of enjoy and thrive in that change. Thirdly, we need them to be grounded. And this is probably the most central and important of the 4 traits, because it's by being grounded, by being emotionally secure, by feeling self-aware and able to self-regulate and resilient, that we're able to take risks, to try new things, to fail and get up and try again, to make new connections and ideas rather than passively waiting for someone to give us the right solution. And groundedness is so important that we identified that very early in this process. And so when we designed the Wellbeing Programme in 2017, groundedness was at the heart of what we designed. And so the programme that Mrs. Looney has created is all evidence-based and slowly and thoroughly gets pupils to consider these different areas and build these kind of grounded skills. And finally, we want our pupils to be giving, because whilst we absolutely want our young people to thrive in the future, we want them to also reach down and pull other people up with them. So what does that mean for your son or daughter? Well, it's not a single simple solution where we've changed one thing in order to embed these skills. Instead, it's kind of an ongoing cultural evolution. I'm going to talk through a few of those things just so you get a sense of them, but I think you'll see that over time, more and more of these things will become apparent and embedded in our culture. So, for example, we want young people to have an ongoing conversation with their tutors. And so we've given tutors extra time so that they can, over the course of each term, make sure that they meet in small groups or one-to-ones with pupils, setting targets, thinking about these 4 areas, how the pupils feel they're doing, what they would like to develop next. And that's an ongoing conversation because we are all developing those skills from the headmaster to me, to the youngest member of our school community. All of us are building further our flexibility, front-footedness, groundedness and giving. We've also created sort of systems to allow teachers to feed back, and these are called targets and demonstrated. So when a teacher sees something, rather than sort of a sort of punitive system of rewards and punishments, it's much more an ongoing conversation. So when I see a pupil demonstrate really good accountability, where they take responsibility for something, there's a system where I can make a note of that. When I see that they're having a hard time emotionally regulating, there's something where I can take a note of that. And so when the tutor or the parents want to have a conversation with their pupils, their children, they can see, oh, it looks like you're doing really well in terms of accountability. Talk to me about emotional regulation. It looks like that's been a bit of a problem. Let's think about that. We've also created some curriculum innovations to allow a bit more of that flexible and synoptic thinking. So, for example, your pupils will be the first year into our project-based learning in the third forms, which will be led by their tutors and will be authentic projects that allow them to work collaboratively, to start to be independent, to start to be flexible in their thinking and pull from a variety of areas. But we've already introduced this year our middle school diploma, which is a GCSE replacement. And we've had incredibly positive feedback on that already. And that builds all the Novus skills as a replacement for the 10th GCSE. We'll also be looking in the following year to introduce an equivalent sort of diploma in the sixth form, which will augment the 3 A-levels. And I think it's worth saying at this moment that I don't think there's any part of us that doesn't think that A-levels and GCSEs are important. They are important for 2 reasons. Firstly, because knowledge is the basis by which we make connections. If I don't know anything, I can't be creative. I can't make connections and links. I can't problem solve. And so we really recognise the value of knowledge. But secondly, GCSEs and A-levels, at least for the next 5 or so 10 years, are going to continue to be gatekeepers for success. So our pupils need those academic skills, but they also need the deeper skills that we're discussing. We've also created new roles in our pastoral team. So we've created two deputy heads of section in each section who work with tutors to oversee the development of the Novus skills in pupils. And we've introduced a head of academic enrichment who looks at all of the academic opportunities beyond subjects that allow pupils to build these deeper levels of intellectual flexibility. And then there are lots of other little ways and means that we are embedding Novus, from looking at how we do speeches and our prize giving through to our reporting structures and our discipline policy. So all of these areas are continuing to evolve so that we can put these 4 traits at the heart of what we're trying to do. And I think the point that we're trying to say is it's about learning is about a journey, not a destination. If a pupil gets great GCSE or A-level results, but they get them through being extremely anxious, through memorization, through regurgitation, through imitating teachers and never risking their own ideas, then they might get to university, but they won't have the deeper skills that will help them to flourish, even in today's world, let alone in the 21st century, and later in the 21st century. And so for us, it's important that they are successful, but it's important on how they get there. And so we want to encourage them to think deeper, to take risks, to be uncomfortable sometimes and push themselves to do things they find hard. So in the end, they are fully rounded and the very best and most powerful versions of themselves. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope to meet you soon. Best wishes.